Let's get into our first topic here of the show. Eric, are the Broncos legit? They beat the Giants and the Jags. Both of those teams are 0-2. But the Broncos look pretty convincing, won both of those games comfortably. What do you think?
I mean, I think that they did what you have to do as a team that's trying to make the playoffs, which is beat bad teams and beat the teams you're supposed to beat convincingly. Now, I'm not sure if this is a Super Bowl contending team, if this is a team that can really push the Chiefs in the AFC West, or what the ceiling is. I think we're going to find that out, Phil, in a couple of weeks here when the Baltimore Ravens come to town. But I don't think you should discount what they've been able to do so far, because it is impressive that they went on the road in back-to-back weeks. I think the Giants will end up with 5-6 wins somewhere in that area. So certainly nothing to scoff at.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the fact that they won those games comfortably lets you know that, this team is better than it has been in years. We're so used to the Broncos games that they do win, it coming right down to the final possession, and you're nervous and it's coming down to a kick or something like that. You don't have to be nervous with these first two games, but not the best of opponents.
No, I mean, I think that's fair. Obviously, the Giants made some critical mistakes. They turned the ball over up there in New York, and I thought the Broncos probably played the better game of the two up in New York, even though Teddy Bridgewater played a little bit better in Jacksonville. The Jaguars just made too many self-inflicted mistakes as well, and so I do think there's something to be said for being able to get over some of those penalties, a turnover up in New York, some missed opportunities in Jacksonville. Being able to win in spite of some of those things, that to me says that you're a pretty good team.
Yeah, and we all know about the special teams miscues that the Broncos have had here over the first couple of weeks. If you can win, giving up a kick return for a touchdown, that's a good sign there too. Eric, you can only play who they line up in front of you, though. So you knew the Broncos had to start out fast given the schedule. They got the Jets coming in this week. The Jets not off to a hot start either. And I think that, if the Broncos team could start 3-0, there's a lot to be excited about. You can't be upset about the opponents. You can still be excited.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take care of business against these teams, and they've done that. We talked before the year. You've got to be pretty close to, we said maybe 2-1 is acceptable, but really to be on pace, you've got to be 3-0 to start the year. And look, if they perform the way they should this weekend, they're going to get to that. Should be applauded. They've taken care of business.
Yeah, and I think that you mentioned Super Bowl. I don't think we should talk about something like that, Super Bowl contenders or not. I mean, I think that
you're the one that said Super Bowl 50 defense. I mean,
you brought the
Super Bowl.
I like to talk about the defense that way, but maybe this team in general. Let's see how they do in some tight games. You got to win games in a lot of different ways. The Broncos, sort of the same formula here the first couple of weeks, and similar final scores. Falling behind 7-3, and then getting things rolling there before halftime. Come out in the third quarter, get a comfortable lead, and then you're doing okay.
Yeah, I mean, they've made the big plays when they've had to. Teddy Bridgewater this week has the 55-yard pass to Cortland Sutton in the third quarter where Vic Fangio says, hey, that turned the game. That's the type of play you need to win a contest. Last year, the Broncos weren't always able to make those plays, Phil, and this year, so far at least, and it's just been 2 weeks against two opponents that are probably going to end up near the bottom of the league, but you've been able to make those plays, and so that encourages me that when you get to some of these tougher opponents, you're not going to win by double digits necessarily, but I've seen enough to think, hey, if you're playing Baltimore, if you're going to Pittsburgh on the road, when you welcome the Raiders here in a few weeks, we're going to be able to make enough plays to be in this thing, and at that point it's a one-possession league, and you just hope that with a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, with Von Miller being as dominant as he is, that you're going to come out ahead in some of these.
You got to beat the teams that you got to beat. The teams that you're supposed to beat, you beat those teams, and then, hey, in those tougher matchups, the division matchups, then you try to say, okay, maybe we eke one out here, maybe you lose one here, but if you take care of business when you're supposed to, and then the rest of the way you're 50-50, you're going to end the season with a pretty good record.
Yeah, no, I mean, if the Broncos can start 3-0, they're going to be at a place where if you can even, go 2-2 over the next 4, you're sitting pretty there as you're getting close to the bye, and I think you've met expectations, maybe even exceeded expectations, and will put yourself right in the mix. I mean, they're going to lose a game at some point here, and so I'll be interested to see, one, how they respond to that, but before we get too far ahead, Phil, you do have to take care of business here in your first home game.
Yeah, and the Jets come into town. Zach Wilson, a rough outing against the Patriots. 4 interceptions, another rookie quarterback. We all know how Vic Fangio, he don't like rookie quarterbacks so much.
Maybe he does like him because his defense has played pretty well against him. 19-9 now after the win over Trevor Lawrence. You're supposed to treat every opponent equally, Phil, and kind of talk about all the ways that the Jets can beat you. If the Broncos show up this week and play at all like they're supposed to, this should not be an issue. You should be able to really get after a young guy who did not make the best decisions, and that's probably the best news for Broncos fans, is that it looks like he's going to make some more of these mistakes.
Yeah, and the Broncos do a great job of disguising what they're trying to do pre-snap. You can't really get a good idea of what's happening. And then once the ball is snapped, everything's changing. And, I think that's a hallmark of a Vic Fangio defense, and it's tough for any quarterback to handle that. Even tougher for a rookie quarterback. So we'll get into the defense here in a little bit more here, but let's move on and talk about Teddy Bridgewater. He's the reason why so many people are excited. We read the comments on YouTube. It seems like Broncos country, even people who are in Drew Lock's camp, they're now firmly in Teddy Bridgewater's camp.
Yeah, I mean, he's performed here. He had a nice game in week 1, and we said, can this last? Can he put this together again? In my opinion, he came out and was probably better in week 2 because he pushed the ball down the field a little bit more, didn't give up on those. The first 2 passes to Courtland Sutton, wasn't able to complete them, and both of them, frankly, Phil, should have been pass interference. Kept with it, was able to hit that long, I think a 33-yarder to set up the first touchdown. In the second half, the 55-yarder, didn't make mistakes, showed the mobility again. The Broncos do have to be better on third down, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit because that's one of my concerns. But Teddy Bridgewater has been better than advertised. He's been more than you can ask for. And if he keeps playing like this, Phil, you've got to consider that he can be the guy that you've been looking for quite a while.
Eric, I think the biggest thing that I noticed with Teddy Bridgewater is that in years past, when the quarterback play hasn't been up to snuff, when things go wrong, typically the mindset is like, here we go again. Do you know what I mean? We're going down a bad path, and it kind of spirals out of control, and the Broncos end up losing a game they could have won. That doesn't exist anymore. It feels like there's so much confidence with this group, and especially from the defense. I think the defense for so long has been the better, stronger side of the ball, and when they're sitting on the bench and they're watching the offense go out there, when they're moving the ball and scoring touchdowns, it gives them confidence to go back out there and play even better. And it kind of is they build off of each other. And in the past, the defense just doesn't, they see a 3 and out and they kind of say, all right, we're going back out there. And, the number of snaps for the defense is down. And I think the defense is, playing off of the offense. And a lot of that is from Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, I mean, no question, because before this week, they were converting third downs, converted some fourth downs, staying ahead of the chains, pushing the ball down the field, stringing together these drives. And you're right, the number of plays is big because when they do have to go out there, they're fresher. This isn't a defense that so far has had to be out there for 35 minutes, 38 minutes. I mean, the Broncos have been able to stay on the field. I think they have 3 scoring drives this year of at least 8 minutes already. Last year, they only had 1 all season, so you obviously want to score touchdowns on those drives, and there is a benefit of being able to strike quickly, which they showed they can do as well. But, yeah, they've been able to put the defense in a position to succeed. And the other thing is, so when you're up 10 points, that gives your defense a chance to do what it does best, which is let Von Miller rush the passer and then let the secondary with Justin Simmons, Pat Surtain, Kyle Fuller, Kareem Jackson, let those guys make plays, because if the game's tied or you're up 3 or something like that, teams can kind of stay in that rhythm and run the ball and stick to their offense. If the Broncos offense can score a little bit early and you can get them out of their game plan, that's when this team, I think that's where you've seen them succeed the last couple of weeks.
I think that the belief is really high right now, and it seems like you're winning games, everything's going well. There's just a lot of positive attitudes and a lot of confidence out at UC Health Training Center right now, and a lot of that to me is from Teddy. And let's look at Teddy Bridgewater's numbers: 26 of 34, 328 yards and 2 touchdowns, Eric, and probably more important than all of that, no interceptions through 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, he's he's been really good. I think some put out a stat about 2 touchdown passes in each game with 75% completion percentage. He's completing 77% of his passes this year. I mean, he's doing things that haven't been done since Peyton Manning was here. And that doesn't mean he's Peyton Manning the player. But
Von Miller kind of said he is.
Well, Von Miller said that a few times about a couple different guys. Okay. But I would say that Teddy is playing well enough that you're going to be able to beat a lot of teams. I mean, the last few years you've looked at the Chiefs, you've looked at the Ravens, you've looked at the 49ers or the Packers, and you said, can the Broncos stay in a game like this? I'm not saying they're going to beat these teams if and when they play them. Obviously, you got the Chiefs twice, Ravens coming up in a few weeks. But I think if Teddy Bridgewater continues to play this way, you're going to be in these games. He can make enough plays to score points. He's not going to turn the ball over. That's critical. And, Phil, I think when we talked a few weeks ago and we said, why did Teddy win this job, we talked a lot about not turning the ball over. But I think we probably underrated the fact that he can make those big plays, and it's been the perfect combination right now.
He took a lot of shots against Jacksonville. I mean, he was airing the ball down the field, and I think maybe that caught them off guard a little bit. And you have to adjust your defense when he starts taking those shots. It opens up stuff underneath, and I think the Broncos took advantage of a little bit of that. And, they put up 23 points. They took a knee there at the end, so maybe they could have punch went in the end zone there, and it could have been 30 points pretty easily, I think. So 27, 23, could have been more than that probably in both of those games if they really needed to go out there and score. And, if with this defense, if you're putting up that many points, you're going to win a lot of games.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that you need to be better on third down, because when you're playing some of these better teams, you're not going to get the chance that if you go off the field that many times to kind of get those opportunities. You need to sustain these drives. But, yeah, you're right in general that if you're able to score north of 25 points, and the Broncos are averaging 25 this year, you're going to be in a lot of these games, and this defense should be good enough to put you in position. But you've got to account that sometimes things are going to go wrong. Sometimes you are going to turn the ball over. And so I'd like to see the output go up a little bit, especially this week against the Jets. It'd be a great
What do you
week.
want to see?
If they could go out there and put up 30-something on the Jets, that would be an encouraging sign that they're starting to piece things together. Because if it weren't for the third downs, Phil, the Broncos would have easily scored 30. And you did mention there that they could have if they wanted to. And I kind of view it more as this game is more like a 23 to 6 or 23 to 7, because the special teams play, which we'll talk about, but. Yeah, they're going to be in a lot of games if they play the way they've been playing the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, a lot of excitement on the offensive side of the ball right now. A lot due to Teddy Bridgewater for sure. So we are broadcasting live on the Broncos YouTube channel, and also very happy to be out here on this Monday night at Breckenridge Brewery's Farmhouse in Littleton, right off of Santa Fe. We're here every Monday from 6 to 7. Outside right now while the weather is nice, enjoying this Colorado weather. When it gets a little bit colder later on, we'll move inside, Eric. So, if you live in the metro area, come on down. I think that it's a lot of fun out here.
Yeah, Phil, especially after a win, to talk about the game, to get excited, to relive some of those big plays.
Couple bevies.
Yeah.
Couple bevies.
Ben Swanson's supposed to be bringing us a bevy any second.
Yeah, happy hour. You just enjoy it out here, living life in Colorado here. Eric, I think moving on to our next topic, fans, as good as things are going, they always want a little bit more. They want a little bit more. They wonder about some things. And I would say that injuries are a big thing that fans are probably thinking about on this Monday. Let's start with Bradley Chubb. This was a game the Broncos were, favored in. If Bradley's ankle was not 100%, do you think he should have been out there?
Yeah, I mean, if he's medically cleared, which is what he was from what we're hearing from Vic Fangio, he should play, because you owe that to your teammates, I think. This game, even though the Broncos were favored, was a game they were trailing in the first half. If it weren't for a missed field goal, you could easily go into halftime tied. There were a few plays here and there where the Jaguars were driving the ball and, could have gone up by 2 scores. And so this was, while the Broncos ended up winning, there were times in this game where it was not guaranteed. So you need those players out there. It's medically cleared. Vic Fangio said he wanted to play. And I think the other thing to consider that Vic mentioned today is this wasn't necessarily going to be any better next week, which to me raises some questions of what is going on. Because a normal sprained ankle, you would think
it gets better with time.
Yeah, you'd think, hey, 7 days from now, this should be a lot better. If they're saying this is not going to be any better 1 week from now than it is today, I kind of wonder, what is the injury or what is the treatment plan? Do you need to shut it down for an extended period of time to make this thing right? Because even when he was in there, Phil, it wasn't like he was getting close to the quarterback or having a big impact. So he wasn't right, but I do think, given the situation, it was probably the right decision to at least try it out. He's in a contract year, too. He probably wants to play and go, or I guess not necessarily a contract year because he's got the option, but a big year for him. He wants to go out there and show he can be the guy. The Broncos want him to go out there and show he can be the guy. So I can certainly understand why he played. And I don't think it's – when you're building a culture, Phil, and you're trying to teach this team, hey, this is what it takes to get to the playoffs, I don't think it's the right message to say, don't play this week because we think we should handle these guys.
Well, if he's not 100%, maybe you don't go out there.
Guys play at not 100% all the time, I think.
Yeah, a guy like Bradley Chubb, you know that he's had some injuries that linger a little bit. He had the Pro Bowl season last year, but in the off season had to have surgery. Maybe with a guy who's a little bit more, injury prone, I guess you could say he is. Just say, hey, if you're not 100%, let's just wait. But the interesting thing, Eric, you and I, a couple of reporters, we look in between the lines. We pick up on little things that sound a little bit off. When Fangio said that it wasn't going to be better next week, that started firing things off like, what's really going on here with Bradley Chubb? How serious is this? And, now that he's re-aggravated it, what are we looking at as a timetable?
We don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem to me, based on how he reacted, that he would be out there this week. I think if you knew that he could potentially play this week, Vic Fangio would have said he's questionable. We'll see. They might still be trying to evaluate and figure out what is the best course of action. You'd hope he doesn't need something like surgery, and that's speculation at this point because we haven't heard anything to suggest that he needs it. But, you could shut it down for a few weeks and see if that just rest for an extended period of time helps. If surgery is the right thing, you hope it's not similar to the other ankle, because with that ankle, he did just shut it down for a while and try to see, can this get better? And it didn't, and then he needed the surgery. So you hope it's not a repeat of that situation, because when Bradley Chubb's at his best, and even, this preseason as he was still kind of working into form, you saw how good he could be. This team with Bradley Chubb can be really scary on defense. Without him, they can still be really good, but they're not going to be the same.
Yeah, Malik Reed is a good player. He could get after the quarterback, but he's not quite Bradley Chubb. You know what I mean? He's not quite that guy where when you're trying to game plan against the Broncos defense, you're worried about this guy so much. You're obviously worried about Von Miller, and I think that this is just disappointing, for Broncos fans, because we've waited so long to see Von Miller and Bradley Chubb out there together. So excited about this pass rush duo. We talked all offseason about how maybe this was going to be one of the better pass rush duos in the NFL. It just seems like for whatever reason, they just can't be out on the field together.
Well, you hope that they're able to figure that out at some point. And the good news is that Von's looked much better than I expected. I mean, I thought it was going to take
3 sacks.
Yeah, I thought it was going to take him a little bit of time to get back into it, to kind of find his rhythm. He's been good right from the get-go.
He's Von Miller.
He is. And so if Bradley Chubb can get out there and you know how well Von Miller's playing, this team is going to be really good at that edge rusher spot. But as it is now, it's a little bit of a concern.
I think it's a lot of a concern,
okay.
You got Malik Reed, and then you've got Jonathan Cooper, the rookie, 7th-round pick out of Ohio State, and then what are we talking about now?
It's true.
I mean, that is an area that I think they'll have to monitor, see how serious this Bradley Chubb injury is. We'll find out a lot more as the week goes on. Maybe if it's serious, they'll have to make a roster move.
Yeah, I would think if it's something that's going to last multiple weeks, you'd have to decide, is there a guy out there that you want to go after? You almost wish that this happened a couple weeks down the road, because if you can beat the Ravens, if you could beat the Steelers, if you could beat the Raiders, not all of them obviously, but if you could just get a couple of wins there and you're sitting at 4-2 or 5-1 or whatever, you might say, hey, it might even be worth it to trade for a guy that could come in and help. 3 weeks into the season, it's a little bit early to, in my opinion, to use draft capital and say,
no,
we're going to go get a guy. You don't quite know, are you going to be buyers at the deadline? Are you going to be sellers? So you just, it's unfortunate this is happening right at the beginning of the year.
Very frustrating news, and I think that Bradley Chubb was very upset coming off the field, and I think Broncos country very upset too, and so is NZ Nation, Neutral Zone Nation.
Yeah, naturally.
Those are the fans of the Neutral Zone, NZ Nation.
Right.
Yeah. Ben Swanson just handed us a couple of questions from YouTube. We'll get to those in just a second here, but we got a couple of more things to talk about right before that. But Josey Jewell, the other big injury, he's running down the field on special teams, makes a big tackle with one arm out there. It looks like he's celebrating, but that one arm that he made the hit with kind of drooped down to his side. I think that's when he got hurt. Well, hopefully that's not something serious, but hearing from Vic Fangio, it sounded like maybe it was.
Yeah, and there's reports out there that he's done for the year. You hope that maybe if the Broncos can push this thing into January, then maybe he could come back. Who knows quite how long that recovery will take. We should get some more information as the week goes on, like you said, but it hurts in two ways because Josey Jewell has played really well this season. Kind of a surprise guy. Obviously, he's in a contract year. He was kind of playing like a guy that you want to keep around. So it's disappointing from that standpoint. But the other thing, Phil, is that you're having to play starters on special teams because the guys behind them just aren't getting it done. And I know Vic Fangio said, Navarro Bowman played in San Francisco. He was a 3-time All-Pro. He played on punt coverage. That's great. And I get that the makeup of a 53-man roster is that a couple of these guys are going to have to play. But you'd hope it's not a guy like Josey Jewell, who is, I think, has been playing like one of the better guys on your defense. And even with Josey Jewell out there, Phil, this Broncos, I think in DVOA, the special teams is 32nd in the league right now. Hasn't been good enough.
You love that stat.
Well,
DVOA.
It's a good way to.
You love those.
Good way to figure out what things mean because it compares it to average. So you can play the Jaguars, another team can play the Chiefs. Makes it all even.
Yeah.
But
so you're saying he probably shouldn't have been out there. Maybe a guy that important. You don't see Von Miller running down on special teams.
Yeah, and obviously Josey Jewell's not Von Miller, but I think it speaks to the fact that if Josey Jewell's not out there, that you're at risk of giving up a big return every time. Josey Jewell, I think, was involved in 2 big special team stops. The one that he got hurt on, but there was one earlier that he had a role in as well. And then he's not out there, and you give up a big kickoff return, and you kind of wonder, can this team, is that going to sting them at some point? It didn't, they gave up the return, but it didn't cost them. When you're playing the Ravens or the Steelers or the Raiders here,
you can't give up those points.
If you give up a punt return touchdown, even if you give up a 40-yard return that flips the field, that could be the difference between you winning and losing a football game. So they have to be better there. And I frankly don't know what it's only coverage units, which is, the return game has been pretty decent because of Deontay Spencer. The blocking's been pretty good.
Kicking game's been good. Sam Martin's been good. Brandon McManus has been good.
Yeah, it's truly the coverage units. And it's been an extended issue. So we know they've gone out and they've added talent. They picked up Mike Ford off waivers. He's had a couple of penalties here. They picked up Jonas Griffith. But so they got to figure something out, Phil, because this will, if it continues, cost them at some point. And it just cost them a starter for potentially the entire year.
And now the Broncos turn to Justin Strnad on defense. We heard from Justin Strnad earlier today, a guy who missed his entire rookie season. Now he's back out there. Heard a lot about his coverage skills. Maybe a guy who could cover tight ends. A faster guy, maybe a little bit undersized for the linebacker position. What do you think? Do you think he'll be able to just insert him into the starting lineup and go from there?
I think they'll be fine. I think he's going to be challenged at times in the run game. He's not quite as physical or as big a guy as Josey Jewell. He's more like you, Phil. He's kind of tall. He's a little bit
really strong.
Yeah, really. He's built, but it's not the same way that like Josey Jewell and Alexander Johnson are these compact guys that are going to hit you in the hole. So he said he's ready for defending the run. I'll have to see it. And then the other thing I worry about at some point with a young player is just Josey Jewell's played a lot of football. He has experience.
Really smart guy.
Seen a lot of things, and so harder to trick him with misdirection, with play action. You hope that Justin Strnad doesn't fall victim to that. I mean, I don't want to skip over the Jets entirely, but we keep talking about the Ravens. When Lamar Jackson is here, they run a lot of things with misdirection. You got to have your eyes in the right place. You got to make quick reads that are correct. That's going to be really tough for a second-year guy that missed all of last year. I mean, he's played in 2 games essentially, and is now going to be the full-time starter if Josey can't go.
And Justin Stronach talked about his relationship with Josey Jewell, said he learned a lot from him. They're really sort of a mentor to him, and now he's going to have to come in and try and replace Josey Jewell here as we find out just how serious it is officially. A lot of reports out there, though, suggesting that it's not going to be so good. So that kind of sucks for Josey. I kind of feel bad for him.
Yeah, of course. He's a guy that, like we said, is playing for another contract. He's playing to keep his starting job, which he lost at one point and then got back last year and made the most of and really kind of came into his own. Vic Fangio talked all offseason. We've talked a lot about it. Josey Jewell kind of underrated as an inside linebacker. I mean, I don't know if you agree, Phil, but I think he's gotten to the point that he's probably the strength of that group in terms of the guys at that position.
Oh, you mean versus Alexander Johnson?
Yeah.
Well, they use them in different ways in my mind. We saw Alexander Johnson yesterday up at the line of scrimmage, lining up along the defensive line, blitzing a lot, going after Trevor Lawrence there. They just use them in a little bit different ways. I'd say Alexander maybe a little more athletic, a little bit bigger maybe, able to do some of those things. But Josey Jewell, really a headsy player. He's the guy out there with the earpiece in his helmet. He's delivering the defensive calls to the rest of the defense. So I think you're going to just miss him in that capacity.
Well, I mean, Josey Jewell went right through the line and applied pressure on Trevor Lawrence, made him throw it up. Pat Surtain ended up getting called for pass interference, but that was a nice play by Josey Jewell.
Yeah.
Then he knocks him essentially out of field goal range.
He had a heck of a game yesterday. He was on fire.
I think Trevor Lawrence threw it to Chenault, kind of in the right
Laviska Shenault.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, you didn't say his first name.
He did not play well enough to get a first name
gosh. Okay.
reference. Sorry,
that's my CU Buff.
That
was a tough weekend for CU Buff fans.
Tough for CU.
Yeah.
But they throw it in the flat to Laviska, probably 8 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Josey's there in a second, so I wouldn't underrate his athleticism. He's not just a guy back there who knows what's going on. He can make some of these plays. He can hit people in space. They're going to miss him.
I'm not knocking him. I like Josey.
A little bit of a knock.
Josey's my guy. Eric, let's move on and talk a little bit more about this defense here in our next topic here on the podcast. But this defense, the focus has been on taking the ball away, making big game-changing plays. We've seen them do that the first couple of weeks here. Only gave up 7 points yesterday. Is this defense better than Super Bowl 50s?
It's way too soon for that.
Okay.
And I think without
we're hearing comparisons.
Who is?
I'm hearing them.
Okay. Without Bradley Chubb, I think it's going to be hard for them to get there because you need, and again, he could come back, but I think you need those 2 dominant edge guys the way that when DeMarcus was healthy, you had DeMarcus and Vaughn. The secondary, I think, compares favorably, but you're going to have to get a ton of turnovers. That defense forced a lot of takeaways. This one has been better than last year. I mean, I think we've got 3, I believe, through 2 weeks. So a better pace, and you've only turned the ball over once. So you're ahead in turnover margin after being minus 16 last year, but they've got to figure some things out because like that early drive against Trevor Lawrence, for example, I don't know that happens to the Super Bowl 50 defense where they go right down the field and it kind of looks easy. Everything was really difficult when you played those guys, and it looked that way the rest of the game. But you've got to do that. The Super Bowl 50 defense did that against Aaron Rodgers. It can't just be Trevor Lawrence. It's got to be when you play Patrick Mahomes, when you play Lamar Jackson, when Justin Herbert.
But do you think that
here.
this team can do it against those guys?
Well, I don't know that I'm ready to say that yet, just because I think that it's a little bit different, right? Like Aqib Talib and Chris Harris were in the primes of their career. Kyle Fuller is a guy who's kind of – he might still have it, but he's had his peak seasons and might be on the way down a little bit.
Well, he gave up the touchdown on the opening drive of the game, right? But then after that, nothing.
Right, but I mean, that's the thing, is that the difference between, to be better than the Super Bowl 50 defense, you can't give up any of that stuff. I mean, you can't have those big plays. I just think that Chris and Aqib in particular, to me, in that back end, were just, I mean, they were all pro players. I don't know if I watch this, Kyle Fuller, Ronald Darby when he was healthy, Pat Surtain right now, and think they're going to be all pros this year. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and I think that they certainly have the ability to be a top 10 defense, and if they're really good and have a nice year, a top 5 defense. But you talk about that 2015 defense as one of the best of all time. I don't know that I think they're in that category. You've got to make more game-changing plays. There were guys all around that defense that got signed to big contracts either in Denver or elsewhere.
Well, let's talk about the secondary here a little bit. When I look at it, I say,
do you
Bryce,
think it's better?
Well, I think it might be closer than people think that it is. I think that when you look at Chris Harris Jr., Bryce Callahan, very comparable type of players there. Maybe Chris was like a little bit better than Bryce, but Bryce has been playing very well so far. I think that if you look at Bradley Roby, I think that Pat Surtain II, very comparable, both young guys, at that time. Obviously, Surtain is a rookie, but I'd say maybe Surtain is better than Roby was that year. And then, Aqib Talib, I think, is better than Kyle Fuller right now. But, if Kyle Fuller can bring it, this secondary is very, at least at the cornerback position, maybe just a notch below the no-fly zone. At the safety position, T.J. Ward, Darian Stewart, I would say that Kareem Jackson and Justin Simmons probably a better duo than those two. So I think that the secondary, it's probably closer than people realize that it is at this point. I think where you're going to see maybe some drop-off is at the pass rush. Von Miller is a little bit older, starting the season very well, but, that Super Bowl 50 season, he was on fire. And then DeMarcus Ware, maybe better than Malik Reed is right now, and DeMarcus Ware is a future Hall of Famer, so he's better than Malik Reed. Bradley Chubb, if he can't get back out on the field, I think that's where you're going to see the bigger difference.
Well, I just think in the front seven in general, it's not necessarily as close. I mean, Malik Jackson probably played better than anybody on that defensive line at the moment. Derek Wolfe, obviously, a good player.
Yeah. But Mike Purcell is in there as a run stuffer. Shelby Harris bats down passes. I'm
not saying it's a bad defense by any means. I think it's a really good defense. I think it can be a top 10, top 5 unit. If they have a really good season, maybe they finish top 3 or something like that. I just think that to be in the conversation with the no-fly zone and in that defense in general, it can't just be, Pat Surtain is better than Bradley Roby, Bryce Callahan is about the same as. It has to be the way they work together. And the way the no-fly zone was, they were so good together. They were great as a unit. They deflected passes that would lead to interceptions. They had that cohesion. They had a little bit of attitude. This group could get there, but right now,
haven't seen it yet.
No.
Yeah.
And I do think the front seven of that 2015 defense was just a different animal. I mean, Danny Trevathan, I think, is probably a better linebacker than the Broncos have inside. Brandon Marshall obviously played well that year. And Vaughn is playing well now, but Vaughn then is a different beast.
And when I think back to that Super Bowl 50 defense, I think Kansas City week 2. Brandon Marshall knocks the ball out. Bradley Roby scoops it up, and they win the game. I think back to the game in Cleveland. It's in overtime. They turn the ball over. The defense goes out there and makes a lot of big stops, forces Cleveland to go backwards. The Broncos end up winning that game. I think there's just so many times that game on Sunday Night Football against the Packers, they just dominated Aaron Rodgers. I think when you think back to that Super Bowl 50 team, the difference was that they weren't just playing good defense by keeping the other team out of the end zone. They were making plays to win games, and I think that that's what's separating them right now. We haven't seen those game-changing plays yet from this defense, but it could happen.
Yeah,
you got to project a little bit here. Obviously, it's only week 3.
Well, but I think you can say, hey, can this defense be a top 3 defense? You can project, and I don't want to disrespect the Super Bowl 50 defense. That's
what I think it comes down to, is that defense won a Super Bowl. So let's give them their due. I don't think anybody's ready to say that they're better. But I'm just saying, I think there's an argument to be made that this team is closer than maybe people realize. I think when you throw out the Super Bowl 50 defense, you just say no. There's no way that they're even close to that. But I think it's a little bit closer than people realize. Obviously, let's give respect to that team. It won a Lombardi.
Yeah, I just, and it's not even about that. This defense can be as good without winning a championship. That's possible, but they just have to do it against a different caliber of opponent before I'm ready to.
So you think it's possible to not win a Super Bowl but still have a better defense?
Yeah, of course. I think there's teams that have had great defense, and you can just say this was a better unit. I mean, the Broncos offense, for example, in 2013 was a better offense than the Broncos offense in 2015.
Yeah, of course,
but 2015 won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but when you're comparing defenses to other defenses, I think when you think about the best defenses of all time, 85 Bears won the Super Bowl. That early 2000s team from the Ravens won the Super Bowl. The Seahawks, the Boom, what was it? Legion of Boom, they won the Super Bowl. The Broncos no-fly zone, they won the Super Bowl. Like, these great defenses win Super Bowls.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be any difference comparing defenses to comparing offenses. I mean, you can have a really great defense that the offense might just not be good enough to get it done.
Well, I think you think about the offenses. Of course, that 2013 offense, probably the best statistical offense of all time.
Yeah.
But the best show on turf, they won the Super Bowl. So, I think that sometimes when you compare these offenses to other offenses, I don't know. They say defenses win championships. Anyway,
right, but I'm just saying, just because the
saying.
2015 offense won a Super Bowl doesn't mean it's better than the 2013 offense.
Say that again?
That just because the 2015 offense won the Super Bowl does not mean it's better than the 2013
No, I think that you're
offense.
missing what I'm saying here. I'm saying that, when you want to compare...
Yeah,
I don't think you're understanding. Nobody's saying 2015 offense is better than the 2013 offense.
Right, but so...
I'm saying if you want to be one of the best offenses of all time, you should win the Super Bowl.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. So, the thing about the Broncos 2015 defense is they won it all. So that kind of puts them
whether
over
or not
the top.
whether or not they won it all, it's still a better defense than what we've seen so far.
Yes.
It's the way they played week to week.
Of course, yeah, I agree.
I think that if you get to the point where you shut down Mahomes in Kansas City or you shut down Lamar Jackson and you start winning these games, it doesn't matter to me if you hoist a Lombardi at the end. I think you can still, if they have the number one scoring defense and they hold teams to fewer than 10 points a game, you can go through and say, hey, that's the best defense to never win a Super Bowl. Or that's the best defense that we've seen, and they just didn't have enough on the other side of the ball to get it done. So
you don't think that winning it all matters then?
No, I mean, obviously winning a championship is important in terms of how you're remembered, but just in terms of pure evaluation, yeah. I mean, like the best offense that Tom Brady, like the 2007
yeah, when they went undefeated.
Patriots,
yeah, of course they lost.
Incredible offense.
Giants
didn't win the Super Bowl. I don't think that takes away from how good that offense was. It just means they didn't win that final game like it. So.
Well, you might argue that when it mattered the most, they just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So that's a knock.
That's true.
That's a knock. So
you'd rather have the Giants offense the Ravens offense from 2000.
No, I think that you're kind of twisting my argument here. Okay. I don't think that you're. Maybe because you're losing it, you're kind of like, oh, let me just make up some words. Yeah. I think that might be what you're doing.
You saw wins against the Giants and the Jaguars, and you were like better than 2015.
I'm not saying better. I'm saying it's closer than maybe people think. Okay. That's what I'm saying. Okay, a couple more topics to get to here as we're broadcasting live from Breckenridge Brewery's farmhouse in Littleton, just off of Santa Fe here. What's your biggest concern right now with this Broncos team?
Well, on offense, it's the third downs. I mean, you have to be better there and in the red zone. So situational football, I guess, in general. You've seen them be fine kind of in the 2-minute drill, which I've liked, but some of this stuff just I don't think will fly against better opponents. So that's on offense. And then on defense, we've talked about it a lot. It is the pass rush because Von Miller can get there. He's done a good job, but I don't know if you can count on that sort of performance week in and week out when you get to some of these better teams. If they're able to stay in the game longer and run the football, if they're going to double team Vaughn, if they're going to double team him and chip him. I mean, there's ways to take Vaughn out of the game if you really want to. And so can the Broncos find other ways to get pressure? And they might be able to blitz a little bit more because the secondary is so good, so you might be able to send some pressure. It'd be nice to have Josey Jewell for that, but those are kind of the two areas where they're not major concerns, but just something to kind of keep an eye on of, hey, And I don't know if injuries is yours, but so far, knock on wood, the only long-term injury we've heard about are the reports about Josey Jewell. So some of these guys are coming back. Some of them they've kind of dodged some bullets here with Jerry Jeudy and Ronald Darby. So they're not any more beat up, I don't think, than most teams at this point. But
yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit concerned, I'll say that, just because it's starting to pile up. And, depth was a big concern for George Payton when he came in here this offseason. They wanted to build depth in a lot of different areas. Jerry Jeudy goes down, you got a lot of wideouts, but that's a big-time playmaker in some of these games. You're going to want Jerry Jeudy out there. Ronald Darby goes down. Probably the best man-to-man corner in terms of coverage skills the Broncos have. And when you're facing Tyreek Hill later in the season, you're going to want him out there. Josey Jewell, maybe it's the whole season. Bradley Chubb. These things are going to start adding up here pretty soon. It's just been 2 games and some fairly significant players are down. I think injuries are a concern. And, Vic Fangio was asked about the running game a little bit on the offensive side of the ball. I know our friend Honko from South Africa, he sent in an email. He was like, what do you think about the Broncos running game? Yesterday against the Jaguars, Javonte Williams, 13 carries, 64 yards. Melvin Gordon, 13 carries, 31 yards. So almost to 100 yards there as a group. But are you concerned about the running game? Did you think it'd be more explosive at this point? Melvin Gordon had the long run, 60-plus yards against the Giants. I don't think that's where my concern is.
No, I'm not too concerned because we heard Vic Fangio say teams have been selling out to stop the run. That's why the pass has been so good. And I'm not surprised by that. You've got to build respect as an offense for the passing game because I think people thought Teddy's going to throw it short of the stick. So load up the box, tackle people short of the first down marker, play the run. And Teddy's shown that he'll beat you if you want to do that. So if teams want to keep doing that, and the Broncos, I'm sure the Broncos are okay with this sort of rushing performance, assuming that Teddy keeps throwing the ball the way he is. So it's all complimentary. I mean, there might be games where Teddy throws for 200 and you run for 150, but the Broncos are 5th in the NFL in rushing yards. They're 12th in yards per carry, so it's not quite as dire as people might think. And I think Teddy had a run, so they might have pushed it over.
Maybe as a team. I'm just talking about those two. Sorry.
Javonte, I think what is that 4.9 something. Right.
Hey, he showed what the Broncos wanted. In terms of running style, he is a bowling ball out there. That 1 yard run, I think it was like 16-yard run, maybe. He was bouncing off guys, fighting for extra yards, and I think that that is what the Broncos wanted when they drafted him.
Yeah, no, he's been good, and if he had the same number of carries as Melvin this week. If he keeps playing like that, it's going to be hard to keep him off the field. That's not to discount what Melvin's done, and I think they do different things well. And from week to week, you could see a different guy based on what the matchup is. But, yeah, Javonte Williams has been really, really good.
Yeah, not my concern there. I would say on offense, maybe just starting out a little bit faster. That's something they wanted to do against Jacksonville, and they were not able to do that. You saw Jacksonville go all the way down the field and score the opening touchdown of the game. I think that the Broncos, maybe if they would have responded with a touchdown right away, you wouldn't have been worried about a fast start. But I don't know how many games it's been now. I think it's the longest streak in the NFL that the Broncos have not scored a touchdown on the opening drive.
Yeah, and, they did go down the field and get the field goal, so it wasn't terrible. I think it was compounded a little bit by the fact that the defense then forces a 3-and-out, you come back on the field, and you're not able to score. I mean, if you could do that then, I think people would be a little less concerned about the field goal because you would have just been glad to have points. But you're right, you got to figure out some way to get a touchdown on the opening drive, to start out fast. But I think it's a good sign in general that the offense responded in some way and didn't just go 3-and-out, because we saw that happen not infrequently last year where the other team would score, Denver would give the ball right back, and then you could be down 2 possessions, or the field is flipped, or your defense is all of a sudden pretty tired.
Yeah.
And so even the fact that you move the ball down the field, I think that was Garrett Bowles' first sack that he's given up in more than a year.
That ended that drive.
So, they were inside the 10-yard line, had a 1st and goal.
They were moving it.
When I went back and watched it this morning, I had different feelings about the opening quarter than I did watching it live. Because you're right, when you watch it live, you're like, gosh, they started slow again. And then you watch and you're like, okay, they actually moved the ball pretty well down the field, and they were pretty efficient. One bad play kind of ended it. really, I mean, what, it was a 16-yard loss, I think.
Yeah.
So
maybe when they come back home, you know, the place is going to be rocking. There's going to be a lot of energy, and maybe that'll just get them off to a really fast start here.
Yeah,
I would say.
that'd be nice.
But I know you are concerned about third downs a little bit too.
Well, yeah, especially because Jacksonville was not great on third down.
Yeah.
In week 1, I think they were like ranked 29th in the league coming into the game, and then the Broncos go I think they had 1 third down conversion.
I think they had 2. I think it was 2.
Yeah, maybe 1 until late in the game, and then got another one there. That's not quite good enough, and it wasn't a huge issue because they stayed ahead of the chains.
Yeah.
So like on that,
they didn't get to many third downs.
On that scoring drive to give them their first touchdown, they had that 3rd and 6 completion to Cortland Sutton, but then they didn't have another third down the rest of the drive.
Yeah.
They kind of stayed ahead. So
that's how you. That's a good idea. Just never get to third down. Yeah. That's what I would try to do.
I was interested because the Broncos' red zone defense has been so good. I was like, how did the Jaguars do there yesterday? The Jaguars never made it into the red zone.
No. The touchdown that they scored was out
crazy.
from 25 yards out, so never into the red zone. Yeah, that was good. So I think injuries on defense, on the offense, maybe a little bit of a faster start, and then obviously both of us have some concerns about special teams.
Yeah, that's got to be better. It's going to cost them.
Yeah, it's just got to be better, I think.
And it might be more frustrating because a year ago, there were times when you would already be losing a game and special teams would kind of put it out of reach, and you were like, just another issue. This year, you could be in one of those games, and that could cost you the game, and that's going to hurt you a lot more than kind of just being one of several reasons why things don't go right now.
So, all right, well, those are our concerns, but overall, very excited about the Broncos being 2-0 as they come back home now. First game of the season at Empower Field at Mile High. There's going to be a lot of energy, a lot of people. I think they're going to be handing out maybe orange towels. Maybe I've heard some whispers about that. So
whispers.
Maybe that place is going to be rocking, I think. I know that Vic Fangio certainly
orange towels
thinks.
or not, it'll be rocking.
I want orange towels.
I think Vic Fangio said lit up.
Lit up.
Lit up.
Yeah. He's been saying pretty damn good a lot. He's been saying that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty damn close, pretty damn good. I don't know.
Hell of a game.
Yeah, I know. The kids are watching.
He's edgy.
Kids are watching here. So, okay, well, let's wrap up this edition of the Neutral Zone as we are broadcasting live on YouTube. We are at Breckenridge Brewery's farmhouse in Littleton, right off of Santa Fe, and we've got fan questions here. Some were submitted on YouTube. Some were right here with people out in the audience here as we're outside enjoying some Colorado weather. The sun is starting to go down, but that's our cue to start wrapping the show up a little.
Yeah.
I think so.
Ben Swanson doesn't even care enough to turn the lights on anymore.
No, he doesn't. Last
Sound,
week,
no. Lights, no.
No. Both things, no.
No.
But we're trying.
Yeah.
And he's trying out for supervisor. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, let's get to some fan questions here.
Okay. Yeah, first question comes from Chris. Where's the sound person?
Where's the sound person? Ben Swanson. He's in trouble.
Yeah,
He's in
AJ
trouble.
will take care of it.
We'll have the higher-ups talk about it.
Josh wants to know the probability of Peyton Manning becoming the GM. He's on site here, which means he...
Peyton Manning? Yeah, we were going to welcome him on, but we ran out of time. We wanted to get the fan questions. We were saving him for the end. Ran out of time.
Yeah.
Just like Matt Damon with Jimmy Kimmel, ran out of time.
Yeah. Peyton Manning, Phil, currently broadcasting Monday Night Football, I believe, as we speak.
That was tremendous last week.
Really good.
That's gonna be really good every week. Must see TV.
Nice to have Peyton around the facility every now and then. Came out to training camp. We saw him at the Hall of Fame. George Payton is the Broncos GM. He's done a nice job. Has reloaded this roster. I think Peyton Manning has been very complimentary of what George Payton has done.
A lot of Peytons.
A lot of Peytons.
Well, I think every time that Peyton Manning is asked, what do you want to do next? What's next for you? What do you think? He said, I'm not sure. He enjoys being a dad. He says that he's coaching his son's football team. He's doing carpool duty. He enjoys that. And I think that one of the cool things about his Monday night gig now is that there's some flexibility there. He doesn't have to do all Monday night games on the schedule. He can do it from home. I think that those are the types of things that he enjoys now, because when you're the starting quarterback of a football team, it is a grind. You're spending a lot of hours at the facility every single fall for 18 years. You know what I mean? His life has been consumed by this. Let him enjoy his life a little bit, and we'll see what's next for him, because I think a lot of people say he'd be so good at that. That's why they want to see him come back and maybe take that role on. I don't know. Some rumors about maybe him getting involved in ownership or something like that out there. Who knows what he wants to do? I think on Sunday he was in Indy being honored at halftime along with Edgerrin James.
I mean, he's universally beloved.
He's beloved.
The same way that John Elway was when he took over and obviously won the Super Bowl here. But I think John found out that you're going to get criticized, and he was obviously, he could take it as a player. He can take it now. I don't think it.
He won a Super Bowl as a GM, so like.
Right, but there was criticism the last few years, certainly, about where the team was. And I wonder if Peyton wants to stay above the fray a little bit. Because when you get in that job, if you're not good at it, and John obviously did a great job in, 5 division titles.
Maybe when his
Super
kids
Bowl.
are older, maybe Peyton will get involved, I bet.
Yeah, we'll see.
He's got to scratch that itch a little. In some sort of fashion.
We'll see. Okay, we got one more question here. Raiders and Broncos are the only 2-0 teams in the AFC. Who do you think is going to lose first? Here's
who
the
do the Raiders have this week?
Well, you tell me.
I don't know who they have.
Oh, okay. The Raiders play the Dolphins this week, and the Broncos play the Jets.
I know the Broncos play the Jets.
Okay, let's go week by week.
I know that. I think
I'm
the
helping
Broncos
the
will
viewers
beat
at
the
home.
Jets, and I think I heard that John Gruden said that Derek Carr was getting an MRI, but he thinks he'll probably be able to go. If Derek Carr can play, I think the Raiders will probably beat the Dolphins. We saw Tua leave that game yesterday for the Dolphins, so I think the Raiders I think both teams win this weekend.
Okay. The next matchup, Broncos host the Ravens. I know you know that. And then the Raiders face the Chargers. I'll look up real quick and see where that game is played. That would have been a nice thing for like a podcast supervisor.
I'm not even sure if that matters. I mean, I think that...
you don't think it matters?
No.
It appears it's in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium.
Okay.
SoFi Field.
Just because
Stadium.
of the way I'm wired, I'll say the Raiders lose that game.
Okay.
That's just in my soul, Eric. So I'm going to say Raiders lose that game. And, of course, the Broncos are going to win. They're going to keep winning.
Yeah. No, that could be an interesting matchup here in a few weeks. After that, the Broncos go on the road to the Steelers. The Raiders play the Bears, I believe, is what this says.
Justin Fields, maybe. We heard that Andy Dalton is still the starter if he's healthy, but who knows by that point.
So at that point, you're talking about...
No, I already got the Raiders losing.
Well, sure. But I'm saying at that point, it's possible that both teams could be 4-1. Because I think it's... The Raiders could beat the Bears, I think.
Okay.
And I think between the Steelers and the Ravens, I don't want to be... You don't want to go too crazy here, Phil. I think it's possible the Broncos drop one of those.
Okay, fine.
So 4-1, that sets up a big matchup here against the Raiders. Mike Shanahan going into the Ring of Fame.
He might put on the headset. I heard he might put on the headset.
Big fan of the Raiders, obviously.
I heard.
I mean, that could be a...
I heard he might put on the headset for that one. Call a few plays, just a few.
Yeah.
Like Shermer might just give him a couple.
That could be for first place in the AFC West.
Yeah, I do think that could be a very big game. I know that the Chiefs, they lost by 1 point to a very good Ravens team. I'm not dismissing them just yet.
No.
And the Chargers, still very good team. Justin Herbert maybe off to a little bit of a slower start than a lot of people are expecting. Not me, Eric. Not me. When you got a new coaching staff, a new system in there, it takes a little bit of time. But we still seen that big arm of his. I think this, other than the NFC West, I think the AFC West might be the best division in football.
Yeah, certainly one of the top 8, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. All right, any more questions?
Nope, that's all we got.
No more. Okay, well, we need more questions next week.
Yeah.
Next week. Did we get any from here at Breckenridge Brewery?
That was the Peyton Manning one.
Oh, the Peyton Manning one. Okay, good question out there. Thank you very much. Broadcasting here at Breckenridge Brewery's farmhouse in Littleton. This week, if you watched last week, you might notice we got a new backdrop. Thanks to you, Eric. You made this by hand.
Yeah, new backdrop.
You painted this, right?
I did.
Yeah. That's pretty nice. Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll have a lot more coming up on our Thursday edition of the Neutral Zone. We'll have your voicemails, your emails. We'll get to all of those things as we look ahead to the Jets coming to Denver. Anything else you want to say, Eric? You feeling good?
No, I don't think so. Always a pleasure to be out here.
Yeah, a lot of fun coming out here. We'll be here every Monday throughout the entire season, celebrating probably at this point a lot of Broncos victories.
I hope so.
Did you say? I would say so too. So a great partnership here with Breckenridge Brewery and the Neutral Zone. Very excited about that as the season continues on. We'll be back on Thursday like usual. Until then, for Eric Dalala, I am Phil Milani. You've been listening to
The Neutral
Zone.